You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for hitting that play button. This is the Dave Bullis Podcast, and I am your host, Dave Bullis, but I'm sure, again, you probably already know that by now. I don't know why I keep saying it. But anyways, before we get to today's episode, I just want to say a quick few things. Number one is I actually just today, which is Monday, February the 5th, I signed up for Adam Carolla's podcast masterclass. I actually saw the advertisement. I thought, for $29, why not? Because the way I view things now about buying anything, about purchasing anything, is, am I just going to waste that money on something else? And what I mean by that is sometimes I'll see movies or I'll see stuff like that for, it's like $2, $3, $5, and I go, hell, I've spent more than that on a lunch somewhere that I ended up just throwing away more than half of it, and this is something tangible I get to keep. So with the podcast masterclass, I said, for $29, why not? And I've already completed most of it, and it's a lot of general tips and stuff like that. See, I always worry about taking these classes online because a lot of times the people who are at the top, they don't really understand or know how they got to the top, and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm dead serious, because sometimes they have a large group of people around them that can help them out. Sometimes they come into a podcast game like Adam did, and he's already famous, so it's already a huge advantage. And I think James Altucher and I, we talked about that a lot too, where people who come in with a pre-existing audience, automatically their podcast numbers are so out of whack. Like Shaq started a podcast and he had great numbers, and somebody like Chris Jericho starts a podcast and he has great numbers. So just stuff like that. And as I'm sort of going through this the class, one thing that really stood out to me was, if you buy the class, you get to pitch your podcast to Podcast One. So I'm going to pitch this podcast to Podcast One. I also have a couple of podcasts that I've been working on, just general things that I could do that don't require a guest. One of which is Total Rewrite Podcast. I know some of you have heard the test episodes that I've done. I would actually scale it back a little bit, and I would just do it myself now. I just would, and it would be like 10 minutes, probably tops, maybe 10, 20 minutes. It would just be something fun that you could listen to on your drive to work, and that's really what I was trying to aim for with the whole thing. So that's something I'm going to shoot for as well, and hopefully I can pitch maybe both of them, maybe this one and maybe something else. Because hell, if you look at some of the podcasts out nowadays, one more can't hurt, right? So also, I've been tearing through Gary Vee's book called Crushing It, and I actually mentioned it to Kristen. Surprise, surprise, that's the guest, in case you don't know. But I've actually mentioned it to her as well. And again, I didn't find the book to be... I was a little let down, and I'm going to end up writing an Amazon review about why I was let down, but I'm going to save that for another time. So... And I will link to the book in the show notes. Why? Because maybe you'll like it a lot better than I did. Maybe you can extrapolate something from it that I didn't. So, but I am going to write an Amazon review at some point, and I'm actually even thinking about starting a Facebook group around the book. Why? Because it's always good to network with other people who are like-minded. And speaking of Facebook groups, I actually have started one already for this podcast. It's free. It's all 100% free. And if you want to join, shoot me a message, or just find me wherever, and I will send you an invite to the group. It's a closed group, so you should be able to see it when you search. It's just called the Dave Bullis Filmmakers Group. There's a link to the show notes in davebullis.com, so you could find me, find the group, and it's a really cool group. We talk about a lot of different things in there. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. My next guest is a pop culture content creator and reviewer, and she is the social media manager for MTV's Total Request Live. In this episode, we're going to be talking about social media, Wendy Savage Twitter accounts, running social media for a multi-billion-dollar company like MTV, all that good stuff. This is episode 203 with guest Kristen Maldonado.
You're listening to the Dave Bullis Podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I was part of the radio station in my school. That was like the main like journalistic thing that I was a part of. And actually, it's funny. I didn't really start out in journalism. I was always a theater kid. So I actually went to school for 3 years studying theater. And then I was like, like I kind of like to talk about entertainment too, not just, participate in it, I guess. So from there, I like switched my major, like going into my the end of my junior year of school, and, got into the radio station and kind of just like did a whole 180 of where I was going career wise.
So being a theater kid, like what were some of your favorite plays that you did while you were in college?
Oh, we did Rent, which was fun. Um, what else? Even before then, I had done like Rocky Horror Picture Show and Aida. I'm a big fan of like contemporary musicals, so like R&B pop sounding music.
So I actually, and you spoke of the radio station. I actually helped out, not a lot at all. I don't want to take away from anybody, but I used to help out with the radio station at the college I worked at from time to time. And one thing that I actually always said was this would make like a perfect web series. Would be a web series about a college radio station, just because for the people that actually really enjoy it and make shows and stuff like that, it almost suits it. You know what I mean? You kind of have all your cast of characters right in there. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you have that newsroom aspect, but then like you have like the music aspect. So like you can get sort of like I'm trying to think of like what news related television shows there are out there, but maybe even kind of like a 30 Rock, but like college level,
Yeah, it's almost. You ever see the TV show Frasier?
I've seen a little bit of it.
Okay, it was, well, he's a radio psychiatrist, and since radio is still around, in that sense, it's just, I think it'd be funny if you had like a almost like a college radio station like that, you know what I mean? And I think it would work in a different way, but it just make it a web series.
That would be cool.
So you graduated and you ended up going, and you graduated from college, and you ended up applying to MTV, correct?
Yes.
So how did that process work? I mean, did you hear about an internship or something in like your senior year?
Well, I ended up staying an extra semester because I switched my major so late. And in that semester, I did an internship at Viacom, which is like the parent company of MTV and a whole bunch of other places. And I was interning at Teen Nick and Nicktoons and The 90s Are All That. And from there, I kind of like reached out to people and was like, I want to learn more about what people do at MTV or at, other companies within Viacom. And this one guy that I reached out to actually responded. He was the only person to respond. And I met with him. He told me about what he does. And I happened to bring my resume because I'm that person that's like, oh, just bring a million resumes with me just in case, because it wasn't even an interview. And he took my resume, and then he also suggested places, like other places within MTV that were hiring, and I applied to those and I didn't get them. And then he reached out to me and was like, oh, actually, we're hiring for a PA right now if you're interested. And I was like, oh, of course. And I applied, and then I got the job. So the rest is history, I guess.
So it's about it's about networking. It's about getting your name out there. And it's awesome too that you got to choose your internship, because I know a lot of times, working, because I've worked at a college. I also obviously I worked at the college that I graduated from, and I've seen it before where I couldn't pick my internship. I had to have one that was selected for me, and I was like,
really?
Yeah.
They like picked it for you?
Yeah, they basically would give you what you had to do, and so. Later on, I heard that you could actually, if you came to them with one, they would let you do that. But what happened was with me, they gave it to me, and I ended up like interning at an insurance, whatever store, whatever location, whatever you would call it. And I was doing a lot of cold calling, so I was like, I don't think this is a good internship.
Yeah, that's so interesting. At my college, you got 3 credits of an internship. And so what people would do was they would do some for no credit just to get experience. And then they would do like, you could put the 3 credits to however you wanted. So they would do like 3 internships with each credit. So I think at school, I ended up doing maybe like 7 internships just because I was like, I want the experience, especially because I thought I was so late in the game, switching my major. So, but that one at Viacom was my last one, which landed me my job. So I'm very appreciative for that one.
So what are some of the things you did at the internship for Viacom?
Some of the things that I did a little bit of writing. I remember I got to write an article about Degrassi's, I think it was their 300th episode. So that was cool because I'm a huge Degrassi fan. So that was like one of the huge perks of getting to work on Teen Nick stuff. I was like, I love Degrassi. And then I got to help out with some of the social media posts. What else? I'm trying to think.
So, so Kristen, I'm not very cool and I'm not very hip. So what exactly is Degrassi?
Oh, it's like a Canadian teen drama. That's what Degrassi is.
Oh, okay.
It's an excellent Canadian teen drama that's been around for years. It's actually where Drake first was discovered. He back when he was Aubrey Graham, before he was like, Drake the rapper, he played a character on this Canadian teen drama show, Degrassi.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that. And I'm glad you clarified that, too, because when you said Drake, I was like, Drake Bell from Drake and Josh?
Who's also excellent. So...
But you see, that's cool because you had to do something you liked. And so when you do this internship, you were able to continue with it because you became the coordinator of digital strategy. So let me ask you this: how were you able to stay in that position? Or I'm sorry, how were you able to sort of parlay that into another position?
Well, that just happened to be another part of my internship was working in like the content management system for Nickelodeon shows. So we would like build out the episodes within the website so that people could watch it online. So that was like a big part of my internship. And that was actually probably my least favorite part of the internship, but that was the part that was like the job that MTV was looking for as a production assistant. They were looking for people that would be able to like build out episodes in their content management system. And I had a little bit of experience with it. So that really helped me actually get that job, which is funny because, so this was like, 5 years ago now, when I first started, our job was literally to build out, full episodes and clips online. And now our job has completely changed and it's someone else's job to do that. And we mostly do like the social and digital strategy around TV shows. So it like really, it changed a lot over over 5 years.
Yeah, because, now if you look at Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, which I consider to be the big four, I know some people like Snapchat. I don't like Snapchat.
But I don't really like Snapchat either.
Yeah, I'm glad you don't like it either because I sit there and I'm like, I love social media and I heard so much about Snapchat and I'm sitting there going, what is this?
Yeah, I think it's more of a personal kind of account. I feel like, I feel like Instagram story is a place that's a little bit more polished, whereas on Snapchat, you can like send a picture of like a goofy face to your friend and it disappears and like it's fun in that way,
Yeah, it's, I don't know, maybe I'm just looking for like maybe it didn't speak to me right away as like a marketing tool, that's what I was looking for. It's kind of like that old saying, if everything looks like, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because you can't even really, search for people on Snapchat. Like it's a lot harder than like if you're just on Instagram,
Yeah. And Instagram, I think Instagram and Twitter are probably the most friendly social media channels. And to tie all this in, you just touched upon, building a strategy for a TV show. Mm-hmm. And I'm really interested in that because sometimes, like when a new movie's coming out, they'll follow me and maybe they'll send me a message and sometimes they won't. And, I always, whenever I see a new movie coming out, I always try to, if they follow me or what have you, that's great. But I'm always wondering, what is the end goal of that? With a TV show, obviously it's a little different because that's a continuation. So Kristen, if you could, and I mean, please feel free to give me as much info as possible because I really like this stuff. What are some of the things that they do, or maybe they even tell you about when they say let's build a strategy around a new TV show?
Yeah. So, I mean, our main goals really are to, bring awareness to the show, get people to engage with it, and to really tap into like strong and passionate audiences and build a community. So when we're coming up with stuff, we're thinking about digital video, we're thinking about social content, and we're just trying to see like what is like the voice of the show, and how are we gonna like resonate with our audience, like who is our audience. And so those are things that we're really thinking about. And we're using all the different platforms out there: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Musically, and just like creating engaging and impactful content. We're really paying attention to like trending topics and what's like popular right now, and just trying to be authentic voices. I think that's like a huge thing right now in social, in just like the way you present yourself on social media is just to like be an authentic, real voice. And I think that's something that we really put into, every show that I've worked on, you don't want it to be like, this is a robot talking to you. Like, there's a real person behind there. You might not know who it is, but like they have a personality. They have, likes and dislikes, and their goal is to, kind of fan out over the things that you're fanning out over, So like on other shows I've worked on, it's maybe, fanning out over a specific show that has, like maybe it's a scripted show that has like a specific storyline. For TRL, it's, we're tapping into, the artists that we love or the influencers we love, and trying to connect with people who love it as well.
Yeah, so that's something I always worry about too, is whenever, you have a channel, people worry about getting spammed. Like, they don't want to follow you, and all of a sudden they're just getting spammed by DMs, which, can't really happen anymore because Twitter changed those rules for the auto DMs. But, they don't want to follow a channel just to get hit with constant stuff, like a robot, like you said, like, hey, watch this or et cetera. So, what are some of the things that you do to avoid that, for a new show? Because I imagine it's kind of like a balance, because you can't show too much footage because you want people to watch it on whatever, medium it's on. And at the same time, you want people to be aware of what the show actually is.
Yeah, I think the balance there is like finding little ways to add like tune-ins in places that like are not overtly like in your face, kind of, so it's like you can enjoy the content, but oh, by the way, it has the tune in at the end of the video, or if putting out a card with like who's going to be on the show, and putting the tune in there, or giving it to talent to let them kind of share with their audiences. And I think when you have like good talent on the show, that have their own fan bases, you can rely on them to kind of help as well, like make people aware that they're going to be on, or that the show exists.
So do you think, Kristen, like, this is why a lot of the times, like, shows or maybe get rebooted, or because or the movies now, you see it's a lot of Marvel movies, there's a lot of DC movies, a lot of superhero stuff. Do you think that one of the strengths of that happening is when you do social media marketing for something like a show like this, or a show that's based on an existing property? You already know what, because you don't have to really introduce people to what it is. You know what I mean? They already know what Batman and Superman is. They already know what, even like Drake, or, coming out with a new CD, they kind of already know what that is.
I think in some cases it can definitely be a strength. In other cases, it might be coming back at a time when people are not familiar with it. Like, I would say a great example is Guardians of the Galaxy. People love that franchise, but before it came out, people were like, what is this? And if you were a big comic book fan, you knew who the Guardians were. But if you weren't, it's like, why are they making this movie about a raccoon and a tree? Like, what is this? And then they were able to turn that into something that people love, like a franchise that people maybe even more popular than Avengers,
Yeah, it's yeah, I always wondered about like that, how to actually, market like new TV shows and things like that. Because even marketing this podcast, for instance, it can be a little bit tricky at times because, again, people don't want to be spammed to. And sometimes it's kind of hard because you want to get because, you want to get the message out, but at the same time, you're like, well, I don't want to spam too much. And then how many tweets are too much, and do you tweet too much? You know what I mean?
I would definitely say a big thing that I've learned in my career is like quality over quantity, 100%. Like you could post something 100 times and you're gonna not get as much reach as like the one or two times that you posted it and just like had really great, copy or really great visuals around it,
So what's something that you've seen, Kristen, with one of your campaigns that just has really taken off? Like, was there like ever a video or a photo you maybe posted on like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube that is just not even just gone viral, but just has been very popular?
Yeah, I worked on ridiculousness for a while, and there was a bunch of times when like we'd have viral clips that we cut and made them a little bit shorter and made them more memeable that would get like, millions upon millions of views, and that's like always a really cool feeling. And I mean, it's probably mostly due to the fact that it's like a funny viral clip, but yeah, I would definitely say that's one of the times where I've seen something do really well. A lot of times it's about just like what that content is and just like putting a good spin on it,
Yeah, that's I've noticed that too. Like just if you know what channel you're on and maybe making the media for that, that's something I've noticed too. Is if you're on Twitter has a different way of people how they consume it. Same thing with YouTube, same thing with Facebook, same thing with Instagram.
For sure.
It's kind of like people expect a certain type of media when they go to those channels.
Definitely. And like it's like always cool like learning like as you go on like what works best where, like maybe square videos do better on certain platforms, or just regular 16:9 videos do better on other platforms. Just even like small things like that can have a big impact on a video being seen. And another thing is like posting things natively. Like if you're on Facebook, for instance, and you post a link to a website, like there's a good chance that like YouTube is not going to surface that. Sorry, not YouTube. Facebook is not going to surface that as high as if you had like, let's say you had a video and you literally uploaded it to Facebook. That will get more reach. Even just like certain language use, like saying share this or like this or watch this, will bring things down, because Facebook can see that you're like overtly promotional when their main goal is to, kind of have people more sharing things personally, and I think that's why things like Chewbacca Mom can go viral and trend, because it's like a fun native thing that like, it's not like someone being like, watch this, promo this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And so, one channel I thought has done really well is Wendy's. Have you ever seen their Twitter channel? How
yeah, they're very sassy.
Yeah, it's amazing how well they've done, and I'm always like, man, all of this from a fast food Twitter channel, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, when you have someone who has like a really great voice, and brings that to the table and can really channel something that that people are interested in, people go to see like what's Wendy's going to say next,
See, and that's a kind of a question I was going to lead into you with is when you want to change a voice, because I mean before that I'm sure the higher ups at Wendy's probably said, all right, look, we're going to get social media channels. We have no idea what we're going to put on any of them, but you're told you have to have all these channels, right? You got to have Facebook, you got to have Twitter, you got to have all these channels. So where does that person come in who finally just says, you know what, I'm just gonna talk crap on other people and I'm gonna do this, and it just, I can't imagine some managers signing off on that. You know what I mean? I can't, because everyone's is so careful nowadays, because that's what social media is, right? Everyone owns marketing now with social media, so I can't imagine a manager at some point being like, you know what, yeah, just go balls to the wall. And, I just always wondered, where that shift came in and who actually approved that, if anyone did, or if some social media manager at Wendy's just went off with it one day and it ended up being a hit and they just kind of stuck with it.
I mean, my only thought, I think working on a brand like Wendy's or like, versus working on a TV show or a movie is that, I agree with you. It's very surprising that they would let a brand like that kind of go balls to the wall and kind of take that big leap. But I think they must have, higher ups on their team who, are very innovative and are really looking at what's going on, like trending wise and in pop culture, and are like, you know what, let's try this. And then, sometimes when you take that big leap, it works. I don't know exactly who, would approve that on their side, because I'm not sure if like Wendy's themselves like have people that are like a social team that runs it, or if they use an outside source. But if they do, like, they obviously are open to taking leaps. And to me, that means they're an even more innovative company than even just that. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's we should tweet them and actually ask them that. I shouldn't even theorize. We should actually ask them, like, when the hell did this shift come in? And I'm sure they're probably, by now, it's probably like, that was somebody a while ago. But I always wondered that if somebody on their last day, grabbed a Twitter channel at some company, like even like Wendy's, and just said, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do now. And that's happened too. Or the last day at someone's job, they've taken to Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and they've literally just not only held it hostage, but they've also just tweeted out random stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see Spike TV's like their last hurrah on Twitter? They recently changed to Paramount Network, and they did this really awesome Twitter goodbye where they just kept tweeting all these things about, like, they were like, oh, it's my last day as a Viacom employee, so like I'm going to tweet whatever I want. And it was a social strategy that they did, and it was so funny. And they became like what is it, like a Twitter moment, and they were trending all over the place. And it was really, really funny.
See, and that works well too, because people, I'm sure, were probably thinking to themselves, "Wow, this is so this person is going to either go out guns blazing, or they're going to actually tell some like kind of like trade secrets or something. You never know, right?"
Yeah, it was all like part of their strategy, so it was planned. But there were so many people commenting, being like, "Oh, whoever's doing this is going to get fired," or like, but it was all part of their whole goodbye, like going out type of thing. And it was really hilarious.
See, that's really cool, and I'm going to link to that, everyone, in the show notes. I'm going to find that, and also we'll also link to that Wendy's channel. But so now in 2017, you got to be made the manager of social media at MTV's TRL.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
I would say it was kind of like I was working on the show previously, and like before it like really jump started, and I was kind of doing it on my own with another coordinator, and it was like so much that they were like, oh, we're going to make a whole new team that's just going to work on this. Do you still want to be a part of it? And I was like, yeah, of course. So it kind of, from there I moved over, and I was just really thankful that I am able to be a part of this huge reboot. Like, it's such an iconic show. So that's kind of how it came about, I would say.
Yeah, it is an iconic show, because I remember watching TRL like when I was in high school, and just seeing all the different, like, the countdowns and stuff like that, and Carson Daly. It's just when I saw that, I was like, I'm glad it's still on, but then I saw it's being rebooted.
Yeah. A complete reboot. It's different, but it's still a lot of fun. We have a lot of great guests come through all the time, so it's great.
So now when the show's running, so as far as social media goes, are you getting a lot of people like saying different things, like, hey, are they able to, meaning like, are they able to vote for stuff?
We do have a little bit of voting. Right now we have a top 3 countdown of like what's going on in pop culture. And so people are, I would say it's more like they give their thoughts on the number 1 topic. So for instance, the one that we just had recently was, they were talking about Kim Kardashian's like recent nude photos that she released. So it was like, the question was like, is she doing too much? Should we just like mind her own business and let Kim do whatever she wants? Which is like, people can kind of cast their votes and share what they think and leave comments, and then they'll talk about it on the show, and they'll like actually bring up fan comments, and they'll be able to like contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, and the Kardashians, they kind of have social media locked down, right? Especially
Oh
Kim.
yeah. Yeah, they like own it. They are everywhere. Everything they post does so incredibly well. Yeah, they're just everywhere.
So let me ask you this, Kristen, just to, as we talked about all the different shows and stuff like that, how do you handle Twitter trolls or trolls in general, people who just tweet at you or message you or whatever and say, hey, listen, this stinks or whatever, and they just make sort of these, whether it be like arbitrary comments or just something that's trying to sort of, ruffle feathers. How do you handle like people like that?
Are we talking specifically around television shows or just in general, like online, like dealing with haters or
Just
either?
well, I was going to say specifically about TV shows.
We mostly we don't answer because you don't want to kind of jump in and cause like a whole, fight with someone when like, we're just focused on doing our job and getting the content out to the people who want to have it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good strategy to have because I remember one time I was talking to a friend of mine who's a social media strategist, and he pointed something out to me. And he said celebrities just tend to focus on the negative, and if you look at a lot of celebrities, they will answer a lot of negative stuff. Like meaning they will always like they always sort of respond to negative stuff. And then it came out, celebrities read mean tweets, and I'm just like, so much negativity, but at least the mean tweets, they can make it a little bit funny.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be hate out there. I think it's just like paying attention to the people that, you know, um, are positive and that actually enjoy your content because the people that don't like it are not the people you're targeting. Um, and I mean, like on my YouTube channel, I've experienced like getting hate on stuff. And my strategy there is like kill them with kindness. If someone doesn't like something that I said or that I posted, my whole thought is like, you know what? You still watched it. So that's fine. Like, that's great. Like, let me know what you think then if you don't like whatever it is.
Yeah, and you did start a YouTube channel, and I mean, I've seen some of the stuff you have on there. You do some review stuff, and you do also. I saw you actually had like some celebrity interviews. So I
Yeah.
wanted to. I know this is kind of sort of like an interview show. It's more like I always consider it more of a conversation. But so I mean, what is it like? I mean, do you do the YouTube? Like, do you try to upload at least once a week?
Yeah, I try to upload as many times as I can, like at least once a week. But if I have more things that I want to cover, just I try to be as timely as possible.
So would there be a point, Kristen, where you would start uploading like every day?
I don't think I have the time right now for that. I wish that would be awesome. Like that, my goal really is to like grow my YouTube and whatnot because I love talking about, television and movies and books and music. And I wish that I could just like spend all my time talking about that stuff. But, there's all these other things I have to work on as well. But it's a lot of fun. Like I've been doing it for 4 years now and I don't plan to stop. I just like talking about things and, hopefully other people will talk back.
Yeah, I was actually I just got the book "Crushing It" by Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you know Gary V?
Gary. Oh, wait, VaynerMedia?
Yeah, VaynerMedia.
Yes, yes.
So I just got his new book, "Crushing It," and I've been just kind of like, it just came out today actually, and I've been just making little notes here and there about different things, and he talks about people who do social media full time. I mean, there's tons and tons of people. Like I mean, if we went down the list of all the top YouTubers and everything else, I mean, it's just the landscape has sort of broadened, and especially with TV now, episodic things are everywhere, but it's also very segregating in terms of what the shows are and what medium they're on. For every Game of Thrones on HBO, you have Stranger Things on Netflix. I almost blanked out there for a second. I almost forgot. I couldn't think of another show. I'm like, it's the golden age of TV, and I'm like blanking out on shows now. But and you see all these different channels like, and you see all these wonderful wonderful shows, and you just kind of wonder about things that fly under the radar. And then you also have content creators like you and I, who I do the podcast, and you have a YouTube channel. It's just. I think the two things that everyone sort of gives it as advice for all this stuff, for everything I just said, just sort of encompass this is to create a brand and to do it very well. Those two components are to create a brand, have your own voice, and also just be unique as possible, and to do it well. Is all the technical left brain sort of things where it's like make sure the framing's correct, the lighting's correct, stuff like that. And I mean, so have you noticed that too? Because I know you obviously probably have friends that do YouTube a lot. Have you noticed that those components of creating like great media across all those channels?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially as you like continue making things, you can like see the difference in like, the audio or the video quality, and it like feels good to, see not just yourself, but even just like how, I guess, like in the world of social media and content creation, like everything has been like elevated and people are making really beautiful content like all the time, which is something that like a few years ago, people were just like in dark rooms, like with little lamps on them to try to like, make their own content. So the quality has improved so much. It's like amazing.
Yeah, I actually had a friend of mine. He ended up repping the. Do you remember the Numa Numa guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
He ended up becoming his manager slash agent. And what happened was, he put that video up, and he knew he hit it big when the news vans were outside of his house, and his mom was like, Gary, there's a bunch of fans and stuff from the news out here. They want to talk to you. And it just spiraled out from there. And then my friend, and that's when he and my friend met. And he was one of the original YouTube, viral video hits and YouTube celebrities. And, he started to parlay that for a while. And he doesn't do YouTube anymore at all. And his channel is actually run by that same friend. But it's just interesting. So again, reading that book about all the people that kind of go in and maybe they have one or two hit videos, and then they kind of like some guy I see a lot of is Casey Neistat. I'm sure you know Casey.
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually saw him once walking his like daughter in the streets of New York City. I was like, what? That's crazy.
Was he vlogging?
I don't know if he was. I just know he was like pushing a stroller. So maybe he had something on him that was like recording. But
I imagine like he can't record anything now in the streets of New York. Like I imagine if he walks around, like everyone just like walks up to him and starts talking to him.
Well, I mean, me and my boyfriend were walking, and my boyfriend was like, "Hey, what's up?" And Casey responded, and I thought that they were friends or something. And then I was like, "Who's that?" And he was like, "It's Casey Neistat." So nobody had seen him then at that point. I don't know if maybe a few more blocks away he got mobbed.
See, and that's what I mean. Like, I can't imagine he goes, because I saw a video he was doing when he was reviewing a camera that I actually was looking at buying, and he actually reviewed it, and I was like, wow, it's actually a 360 camera, and like he was like skateboarding down the street, and people were still trying to talk to him. Like, so he's like whizzing past them, and people were like, "Oh, Casey, what's going on?" It's like, I mean, I hopefully nobody thought they were going to have an actual conversation with somebody skateboarding past you, but it's you never know, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like all his fans are kind of like his friends, where they're all just like, "Hey, what's up, man? Good seeing you," as he rides by.
And that's kind of what you want, right? You want to have that brand where you kind of like, it's you notice it, and you want to be able to interact with it, right? So, and I think that's kind of what the Kardashian brand. I mean, look, what they've done, and they, love them or hate them, they still have that brand image, that brand name, and they make a ton of money just doing just being Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, just being themselves. It's crazy that you can like, make a career in being yourself nowadays. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's always that magical word to influencer, right? So you're kind of always wondering, what is that influence? Because I mean, like even when you're doing a TV show on Twitter or Facebook, and you're as the show's happening, you have a tweet chat going on, and you're trying to influence people to watch or to interact with the show, because when they interact, they have to watch more, and when they watch more, they want to interact. It's kind of like that kind of zigzags back and forth. And I think that's too what everyone's kind of is looking for, is how to sort of leverage, starting a YouTube channel. Like for instance, you, Kristen, like you started a YouTube channel a few, 4 years ago, And have you been able to sort of, leverage that or use that to sort of maybe, hey, Kristen gets, you get invited to an event because they say, hey, listen, Kristen has this YouTube channel. She's done all this other stuff. Should we invite her to this, to this event? Has that happened to you yet?
Not really. I've had like a couple of like small opportunities of like, oh, there's like a book subscription service that once sent me a box to try and like review for free, so that was cool. And like Tribeca Film Festival I go to every year, but that I didn't really get that opportunity like through doing YouTube. I got it through something else. So I would say like right now I'm kind of like just doing my own thing there, but I would love like the opportunity to like cover more things or, whatnot through my YouTube channel. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, because I didn't mean that the way it sounded. By the way, I guess it hasn't happened to you yet. I'm sorry.
No, I'm working, working towards it, trying to grow.
because because sometimes I've had friends who they started a channel, and I mean, for instance, I started a podcast before this one years ago on a whim, and you'd be amazed at the people that I had just not only following the podcast channel, the Twitter channel we had for the podcast, but people would follow it and they would ask to come on the podcast. And these are people that were on TV. And I'm like, there's no way this is real. Like, there's no way. And then, yeah, it turns out it was real. It was completely real. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, why my little podcast at the time? And it's like now all these people who are on TV, like, who are on like different chef shows, different other shows on History Channel, Discovery Channel, all them. They wanted to come on my podcast. I was like, what the hell am I doing?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm kind of like, if you have persistence, it's amazing what can happen. Because I mean, the average podcast lasts 7 episodes and gets 50 downloads per episode. So
Wow.
so that's 350. And I don't know what the average Twitter or YouTube or anything other analytics are, but you can kind of see it though with podcasts, because not only am I in this medium, but you can see when people just start things because they want to see how it works, and maybe they have an idea and there's a lot of fervor and a lot of energy and they go for it, and it kind of fizzles out, and then all of a sudden you just see it's like a relic, it's like a ghost town that nobody talks about anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people do that on other platforms also, like YouTube, where like you start out thinking, oh, I'm going to make these videos and it's going to go viral and get 1 million clicks, and it's going to just like blow up, and then it doesn't, and then a lot of people stop because it's like, this is not going where I thought it would. And my goal is to never be like, oh, I just gave up, like I think that I'm like slowly growing, and I mainly started my channel because I wanted a place to talk about pop culture. And, as a journalism student, I was always, I wanted to be an entertainment journalist. And whenever I went to panels and things, they would always say, if you want to do it, you have to do it yourself. No one's going to hand anything to you. So I was like, well, no one's going to just let me be on air. So like, I'll make my own channel where I can be on camera and I can talk about what I want to talk about, and we'll see what happens. And I've gotten a few like little opportunities to do things outside of my channel, like hosting wise. Like I've done a few videos for MTV and a few videos for Glamour. And I hosted a recap show for MTV's Faking It when that was on, which was really awesome. And I would love to like find opportunities to like do more stuff like that. But yeah, it was more for me to like have a place to talk about the things that I want to talk about that I love.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things with social media is obviously, you can sort of run the channel the way you want to run the channel. You don't have to answer to anybody, and you can just sort of do whatever you wanted to do. That's and like you started that YouTube channel, and I started a podcast. I mean, it's just you just sometimes have to just go out there and just do things.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean, and just, hey, this is what I want to talk about. This is what interests me. Somebody once gave me the advice that if you can just get 1,000 true fans and they each pay, I forget what the amount was, you could easily just substitute that for your day job, like right off the bat. And once I heard that, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. If they were to just whatever, buy your services, buy T-shirts, whatever. It hasn't quite worked out that way for me, but it's a cool theory, right?
Yeah, and I think it's very commendable to like kind of do stuff like this on your own and like, not rely on other people, and, you're putting it out there, and if people want to check it out, then they can, and, you can, even if it's not a huge community, like my community is not that huge, but there are people that do have interest in hearing, what I have to talk about, and I'm sure what you have to talk about. And then that's like a cool feeling that there's people there that do want to have that conversation,
Yeah. And it's, and I think more and more, I had on here, I forget his name. I can't believe I'm blacking out. But he actually works for Pixar. And we had him on the podcast. And he actually said, he goes, I think in 5 years, you're going to see this huge influx again of people just starting this stuff again. And what's going to happen is people who didn't start it 5 years ago are really going to regret it. But people who started, 5 years earlier are already going to have built-in analytics. They built in, numbers and everything like that, and built-in audience rather than just starting fresh, from scratch.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I already regret, and I'm kicking myself for not starting my stuff earlier. And it's because I was too nervous, I was like afraid to put my voice out there. And now I'm like, whatever. Like, I'll talk about, the things I'm interested in, and just like hope that people, will listen. But before, I was like really scared to do it. I'm like, what will people think? Like, especially like, what will people I know think? Will they think it's like lame? There's like, you can't really worry about everybody else. You got to just do the stuff you want to do.
So did you get any blowback, like any friends or colleagues or anything, where when you mention that they, people might think it's lame, did you get any blowback at all from any like friends or anything like that?
Not really. Well, when I first started, I would like talk about pop culture, and then I would like sing and stuff in my videos. And I did have a friend that was like, yeah, that is kind of lame that you do that. And I was like, whatever. And then I slowly, not because of what they said, but like just because it worked better for my videos, like stopped, like adding that like singing element. But no, I just do that at karaoke, But otherwise, nobody's, I feel like I get like some decently like good feedback of like, oh, I see your YouTube videos, like that's really awesome that you're still doing it, and like you have some cool content out there. So yeah.
Do they actually like it? Like, meaning that, do they like it? Give it the old thumbs up? Because I have friends who I post stuff on my personal Facebook page, which has kind of become like a mix of both. And they'll say stuff to me like, oh yeah, I saw you were doing that and blah, blah. And I'm like, well, how come you didn't like it then? How come you didn't say anything? Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like,
yeah. I feel like my like real close people will like it, but like everybody else probably just looks at it and scrolls past and is like, yeah, I saw that, which is fine. You got to know who your true fans and friends are.
Yeah, I don't know. I always think it's weird if somebody sees something and they don't like it, and they know, you know what I mean? And they're the same type of people that would be, if anything ever became of this, like something big, like if you got famous or if you got money from it. Like,
then they'd be like, hey, I've been here the whole time. And you're like, no, you haven't been.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always like, I got to make a mental Rolodex of those people. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta watch those people, because they're the vultures. That's like the minute you fail, they're there to kick you while you're down. But the minute you succeed, they're there to help you. About, oh yeah, we've always been there for you.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, we've been talking for about 45 minutes now. Just in closing, I wanted to ask you one question, and that is, for anyone starting out on social media now, what advice would you have for them?
I mean, I would say the best advice that I've ever gotten, which I mentioned before, is just like, do it yourself, and hopefully the opportunities will come. So, if you want to run certain accounts, maybe start building your own accounts, make a website, start talking about the things that you want to focus on. Maybe try to volunteer somewhere. If there's an organization that like, maybe can't pay you, but you can volunteer. Maybe it's a charity or a band, a local band or something like that. See if you can help them with their social media and kind of get that experience. And always go for the internships, especially if you're in school, like do as many internships as you can. And I think from there, your work will speak for itself.
Yeah, and that's really good advice. And I know a lot of times when anyone starts a channel, it's kind of like, what do you post? Something I've learned, and just to sort of piggyback on what you just said there, Kristen, I think posting is obviously, it's not really a strategy per se. It's more of just being consistent. But what you're going to post, hey, I'm going to post something that now maybe a quote, and then the next post is going to be something else. Maybe it's going to be some other piece of information that can actually help them, or what have you. So it's kind of going back to Gary Vee. It's kind of like that, left jab 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 right hook, which is give 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 ask. So it's kind of like you always help, making sure that if people follow you, they know they're not going to get spammed. They're going to get something of value.
Yeah, definitely.
So Kristen, speaking of online, where can people find you at online?
You can find me everywhere at Kaymaldo, Kaymaldo. So I'm there on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. If you add a 1 at the end of that, you can find me on Instagram and Snapchat. Yeah, I'm all over the social webs, the interwebs.
And I will link to all of that in the show notes at davebullis.com. Twitter, it's at Dave_Bullis. And then you can follow the podcast at DB Podcast. I'm a lot more active on the podcast one, obviously, for those of you who follow me. Kristen, I want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.